This is Texas. Texas is big. In fact, everything about Texas is big. Naturally, football is no exception. In a state where high school football can pack stadiums and college games are events of near religious devotion, football is truly king in the Lone Star State. This map demonstrates how competitive the football landscape is in Texas. Here are its NFL teams, and here are all the college football programs from just the Power 4 conferences. And these are the rest that either belong to D1 schools, the United Football League, or even arena football. This doesn't even include the abundance of high school teams that are staples within their communities. Some are near major cities, others not so much, but one thing that is certain is that you don't need to travel far within the state to find a major football institution. But when you consider just how popular the sport is within the state, isn't it a bit strange how Texas only has 2 NFL teams? For many states, having 1 NFL team, let alone 2, is something to be proud of. But when you look at Texas, a state with a population similar to New York, California, or Florida, the comparison is surprising. Each one of those states has 3 NFL teams, while Texas, a state obsessed with football, is home to only 2. Surely with all of its passion and obsession for the game, Texas could find room for one more team, especially with how spread out its population is among several decently sized cities. But that's not the case. There can be countless reasons for Texas not having a third NFL franchise, but perhaps the most significant one is the dominance of the Dallas Cowboys. Could their influence be the key factor? First, it helps to understand just how big the Cowboys really are and how they got there.
They are the Dallas Cowboys, America's team.
Coined as America's team for what feels like forever, the Cowboys' success goes beyond winning multiple Super Bowls across several decades with high-profile teams. They've been one step ahead of the competition in regards to marketing and promoting the franchise. In other words, they didn't stumble into success. They built an empire. Whether it's regularly wearing white no matter if they're playing home or away, having its identity tied to its bold star logo, being given the America's Team moniker, or even revolutionizing in-crowd entertainment with the cheerleading squad, the Cowboys became recognizable early on in their history. The franchise became a staple of Thanksgiving football, joining the Lions as a regular participant in the holiday weekend games. Additionally, they made history by becoming the first NFL team to broadcast their games in Spanish. The list really could go on long enough to have its own video, but you get the point. Clever marketing, however, didn't fuel their rise all by itself. In order to grow a brand, there must be some good fortune in there as well. Traditionally, the Cowboys have competed in the NFC East, which meant they regularly faced off against teams from New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, 3 of some of the country's biggest media markets. These matchups consistently drew national attention, especially in primetime TV slots, which contributed to the Cowboys maintaining their high profile. Rivalries with big market teams meant more games were aired on major networks, which, in turn, led to more exposure and higher ratings. As a result, the Cowboys became a regular feature on people's television sets, generating immense visibility not just in Texas, but nationwide. This ensured that their brand grew far beyond football. Having a platform for exposure, though, often isn't enough. You need a winning team to capture people's hearts. And just like building a successful franchise, managing stress with work-life balance takes a lot of effort. I come across these challenges all the time through making videos for this channel. It's exciting work, but the constant drive to create can sometimes lead to stress, making it easy to neglect things like sleep, exercise, and even a balanced diet. In moments like these, therapy could be a valuable tool to put things into perspective and prioritize what really matters. That's where today's paid partner, BetterHelp, comes in. BetterHelp is a platform that enables therapists and clients to connect effectively, helping them make the most out of their therapy sessions. Whether you're stressed with your personal life, work, or simply from having multiple responsibilities, BetterHelp can easily connect you to a therapist who can listen, offer insights, and help you build strategies to better take on these challenges. BetterHelp makes it simple to get started. By filling out a short questionnaire, you can be matched with a credentialed therapist in as little as a few days. And if the first therapist isn't quite the right fit, switching to another is seamless. This flexibility allows you to find someone who understands your needs, so you can start making positive changes. If you're feeling overwhelmed or think therapy could benefit you, consider giving BetterHelp a try. Just click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/mapify for 10% off your first month. Now, back to the video. So with the Cowboys well positioned for primetime television, all it took was high quality football to get Americans hooked onto the franchise. Led by Roger Staubach, the 1970s Cowboys won 2 Super Bowls while being a dominant force in the regular season for most of the decade. This momentum was carried into the 90s with the arrival of Jerry Jones, who rebuilt the team into another dynasty, winning 3 Super Bowls in 4 years with the likes of Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin. And even when they weren't winning at all, the franchise was routinely competitive. The Cowboys missed the playoffs just 8 times between 1966 and 1999, which meant even more opportunities to be featured in households across the country. Meanwhile, Jerry Jones successfully carried on the tradition of propelling the Cowboys brand across America. The franchise licensed their own merchandise and sponsorship deals, and famously built AT&T Stadium. Whether it's how players performed or what innovative ideas the executives came up with, the Cowboys' fate was destined to captivate or even agitate millions of football fans across the country. But could the franchise reach this level of success if it were based in a different city? Probably not. Let me explain why. Throughout its history, Dallas has primarily competed with Houston when it comes to capturing the attention of NFL fans in Texas. Whether it was the Oilers or the Texans, neither Houston team has ever matched the level of influence as its state counterpart. The Houston Oilers emerged in 1960, the same year as the Cowboys, but the team failed to have the same on-field success. By 1997, the Oilers left for Tennessee, and it wasn't until 5 years later that an entirely new franchise joined the NFL and called Houston home. So when you factor in the disjointed timeline of a football franchise that couldn't even match the Cowboys' level of influence during the same time frame, Houston was always going to struggle to compete with the team just up the road. This likely discouraged potential expansion teams or relocating franchises from even considering the Lone Star State, right? It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's a topic that will be covered shortly. However, the Cowboys' stranglehold on their region doesn't stop at the borders. Outside of Texas, there are few metropolitan areas nearby that are large enough to support their own NFL team. When the Cowboys began to rise in the 1960s and onward, these regions only had access to a handful of games on their TV every weekend. So with the Cowboys regularly imposing themselves into the primetime TV slots, football fans in regions without a local franchise naturally turn their head towards the Cowboys. This includes neighboring states like Oklahoma and Arkansas. Louisiana, despite having a team in New Orleans since the late 60s, accumulated interest in the Cowboys early on since it took the Saints quite a while before being competitive. And with Arizona not having the Cardinals until 1988, the Cowboys could consolidate a vast amount of support in New Mexico. Lastly, with being situated right on the American-Mexican border, plenty of Mexicans didn't have to look too far north before settling on a team to root for. This is evident by the fact that the Cowboys first broadcasted their games on Mexican TV in 1970, just prior to their first dynasty. And of course, this doesn't even include those all over the country that were constantly exposed to the Cowboys and their winning ways. Obviously, it's not all black and white. A region doesn't automatically mandate someone to support a specific franchise, but proximity along with exposure makes a tremendous difference over time. If all of this doesn't demonstrate why the Cowboys are enormous, I don't know what will. I'm sure I missed a few reasons though, so feel free to let me know other ways in the comments section below. And while you're there, check out Sport Vista, my weekly newsletter for stadium updates, and grab a stadium map poster from my website. So regardless of how the Cowboys achieve their claim to fame, or where the franchise ranks on the Forbes list, should these reasons be held fully accountable as to why there's no third NFL team in Texas? As mentioned earlier, Florida, California, and for all intents and purposes, New York, each have 3 NFL franchises. California and New York benefit from having 2 massive hubs in Los Angeles and New York City, so the NFL is fine with each metro area having 2 teams. This setup allows both states to accommodate 3 franchises by spreading them across 2 major hubs. Then there's Florida, a state that has its population spread out between several cities like Orlando, Miami, Tampa Bay, and Jacksonville, just to name a few. These concentrated areas across the state give Florida a better chance of having more NFL teams. My previous video explained why Jacksonville getting a team was pretty unique on its own, but basically, the city received Florida's 3rd NFL franchise under opportunistic circumstances. This brings us to Texas, which unlike New York and California, doesn't have a single megalopolis. Instead, similar to Florida, its population is fairly spread out across multiple cities. The Dallas-Fort Worth area, along with Houston, already have franchises of their own. These are the 4th and 5th largest metro areas in the country by population, so fair enough. Then you have Austin and San Antonio. These regions don't have the same population as Dallas or Houston, but their surrounding areas are still larger than several cities that already have NFL teams, such as Pittsburgh, Las Vegas, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and Nashville, among others. Considering how football is king in Texas, it's not far-fetched to believe that either city could support its own team. But when you examine it a little closer, there's a reason why neither city has its own franchise, and it's not necessarily just because the Cowboys are that popular. Let's start with San Antonio, a city that has long been in the rumor mill to get its own NFL franchise. After all, it's the biggest hub in the country without an NFL team. It tried attracting a franchise in the past by building their 64,000-seat Alamo Dome in the early 90s, but nothing came from it immediately after. The city did, however, come close in the mid-2000s when the Saints were forced to relocate some home games to the Alamo Dome after Hurricane Katrina devastated the Superdome along with the rest of New Orleans. The owner of the Saints at the time, who already had strong business ties to San Antonio, flirted with the idea of moving the team to Alamo City.
In the past few weeks, we've heard growing rumors about the Saints going to San Antonio.
We want our Saints. We may not want the owner back.
Taking our team now under these circumstances would be like stealing a dead man's wallet.
In the end, though, nothing came to fruition thanks to the league advocating for the Saints to stay put, which meant San Antonio never got their NFL team. It's worth noting that San Antonio, along with its Alamo Dome, is consistently used as leverage by owners across the NFL when looking to get a better stadium deal from their respective cities. But it's mainly all talk. Meanwhile, Austin, a city that has experienced a massive population surge similar to the rest of the Sun Belt, is already home to the Texas Longhorns, one of college football's most storied programs.
End zone ahead, folks! Touchdown, Longhorns!
The University of Texas has been and continues to be the heart and soul of Austin sports. Considering the influence of the Longhorns paired with an already competitive sports landscape across Texas, it's no surprise that Austin didn't debut its first major professional sports team until 2021. That was Austin FC of Major League Soccer. It's even been thought that a team in between Austin and San Antonio could be viable given the proximity between the two cities. On the surface, a team in either city, or both for that matter, could very well offer something for the NFL to consider. But odds are, it would never happen. It's long been speculated that the I-35 corridor from Dallas all the way to Laredo unofficially belongs to Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. For decades now, the team has been able to claim the entire stretch as its own territory, even though it's probably not in any fine print. Which means, if there's any true chance of an NFL team wriggling its way into the region, Jerry Jones would likely find a way to stop the deal since the whole area is key to the Cowboys' brand exposure. Any team entering into the Austin-San Antonio market impedes on the Cowboys' empire. Moreover, residents of both metro areas, particularly San Antonio, already have a strong allegiance to the Cowboys, which has been reinforced by the team holding their training camps in these cities over the past few decades. Building a new fan base there would likely be an uphill battle and a waste of resources. Of course, these hypotheticals ignore complex situations like infrastructure and funding, which would add a whole new layer of barriers affecting Texas from getting its third team. But at a large scale, it's still a long shot. If the Cowboys didn't build up their brand over the past several decades, maybe these two cities position themselves better to attract a franchise. But as long as America's team is still kicking around, you'd be hard-pressed to find an owner inclined to compete in the highly saturated football market that is the Lone Star State. Is there another reason why Texas is without a third team? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.